Hello everyone, how are you all? It's been a while. I haven't been on in several weeks at this point because I did get married and go on a honeymoon. So it's just been a really busy but very exciting and happy time in life. But I still haven't even unpacked my makeup bag from my wedding. And before I do, I thought it might be fun to come on and show you the makeup look that I did. I did my own makeup for my wedding, and I watched a lot of other people's videos on how they did their makeup for their wedding, so I thought I would show you how I did mine. Believe it or not, I did not have 4th of July nails for my wedding day. That is a new addition since I've been back, so I tried to put on some bridal earrings and my little bridal getting ready robe, but you'll have to ignore the manicure. So let's zoom in and we'll get started with the eyes because I did my eyes first just in case I had any major mistakes and needed to quickly wash my face and start over on my wedding day. And I would recommend, if you're getting married and doing your own makeup, that you do the same just to give you some peace of mind and take some of the pressure off of the eye makeup. You will have to forgive my skin as well. All of this stress, but I say stress meaning positive, happy stress, busyness, and obviously traveling has wreaked a little bit of havoc on my skin. So my skin is not looking as nice as it was leading up to the wedding day because I had been taking such good care of my skin leading up to the actual wedding. But I'm just starting with some concealer. This one is from Pat McGrath, the Skin Fetish Sublime Perfection Concealer. I have the shade L5, but any concealer, your regular under eye concealer is fine. I just like to start with this to brighten up the inner corner of my eye and also underneath the brow bone. And then the name of the game for your wedding makeup is going to be long wear. So I highly recommend an eyeshadow primer. This is my favorite one. It's from Ulta Beauty. It's just the matte eye primer. And this keeps my eyeshadow on very well and also keeps it from creasing. So put a healthy layer of that across my lids and up to the crease, and then with whatever's left underneath the lower lash line. And then to just have double, triple insurance that I was not going to have any creasing in my eyeshadow, I set over this with a face powder. This is the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless Finish pressed powder. I have the shade 1. And you'll see that in my wedding makeup, I used a lot more powder than normal. For those of you who don't know, I live in the Midwest, but I am originally from Georgia. So for my wedding, I traveled back down south to Georgia, and our wedding was in June. So June in Georgia means hot, humidity. It was like a record high that day. Of course, it was like 96 degrees at 6 o'clock at night, and it had been 100 earlier in the day. So it was a struggle to keep cool. So I tried to take every preventative precaution that I could to keep my makeup on my face. And those of you who travel or spend time in different climates may know, but when I live in the Midwest year-round, my skin is very dry. As soon as I go to Georgia, I am combination oily. I don't know what happens. I think it must just be the humidity in the air. But that is another pro tip, is wherever you are getting married, if it's not where you typically live year-round, either do some research or go there if you can and see how your skin reacts, because I definitely needed to treat my skin like it was combination oily for my wedding day, when typically I have very, very dry skin and would do a completely different skin prep. So that's just a little pro tip that I will share with all of you. And then for eyeshadow, this was such a debacle. You all know my love for eyeshadow and my collection of eyeshadow palettes, but because I was traveling, there were a few things that I had to kind of keep in mind as I was picking out my wedding makeup. And I wanted to give myself options in case I had a change of heart on the day, but I also didn't have a ton of room to pack my makeup. So I ended up settling on a build your own palette. And I put a bunch of shades together, some of which are from Natasha Denona, some are from Tarte. I think this one is a Sydney Grace. This one up here is a ColourPop. Just a really nice mix of neutral mattes with a couple of shimmery toppers so that I felt like I had all my bases covered in one palette and I wasn't bringing multiple palettes. And I actually loved the palette that I put together. So if you have singles or you have magnetic palettes like the Tartelette and Bloom palette, a lot of these shades came from that one, you might consider trying out a build your own palette for your wedding day, just so it's completely customized to exactly what you want and to what you think you're going to need for the day. Another little trick I did was to curl my eyelashes before eyeshadow, just so that, oops, a speck of glitter from somewhere, just so that I didn't have to worry about messing up the makeup really, really close to my lash line on the top, and I could just go straight in with mascara. Okay, so our first insurance was the eye primer. Double insurance was the face powder setting my lids. Triple insurance is taking a kind of bone color and a color really, really close to my skin tone and putting that all over my lids to set for a third time. I'm telling you, I was serious about my eyeshadow not creasing. So this more bone colored shade is from the Tartelette in Bloom palette, and I focused that on the inner corner of my eye because I wanted a really bright inner corner and a little bit up under my brow as well. And then the more nudie beige shade is from the Natasha Denona I Need a Nude palette. I believe it's a shade called Fair, and I kind of put that on the rest of my lid just to really blank out any discoloration, make the rest of the eyeshadows really easy to blend on top of these powders, and also just really brighten up the eye space. Wedding makeup is so personal, and everybody has their own style and their own comfort level with how much makeup they wear day to day and how much they want to wear on their wedding day. For me, I just wanted to go for something really classic and timeless that felt like I looked like myself, but not so natural that I felt like I didn't have any makeup on when I look back at the photos. Like, I wanted to feel glam and put together and sophisticated, but I kept it pretty minimal and pared down because I just wanted to feel like me, and I wanted my makeup to stand the test of time in the photos so that I wouldn't be looking back 30 years from now and thinking, what the heck was I doing? So to achieve that, I just did a pretty standard kind of defined crease with a little bit more definition toward the outer corner. So I took this mauve shade from the Tartelette in Bloom palette and then a kind of rosy tan color. This is a Natasha Denona one. I can't remember if it's from the Glam palette. I think it's from the Glam palette. But I just kind of mixed those two together and used that as my crease shade. I also knew I didn't want anything too warm on the eyes because so many neutral browns look straight up orange on me. So I really tried to pull a few mauvey, rosy tones so that things wouldn't flash back orange in the photos. Then on a slightly smaller but still fluffy brush, I went in with this slightly deeper brown, still got a bit of a rosy undertone to it from the Tartelette in Bloom palette, and just started to lightly deepen up the outer corner here. Then going back in with the initial brush to blend that. I will say I took a lot of time on my eyes because I just really wanted to get the blending right and make sure I was happy with everything before moving on to the face. Okay, and then I just flipped this brush over, and on the flatter side, I grabbed this kind of warm chestnutty brown shade, and that was my main defining shade. So I just kind of tilted my brush diagonally and started to build out this outer corner. And I wanted to keep things, I wanted a little bit of a wing to my eyes, but I wanted to keep it pretty natural to my eye shape. So I didn't wing anything out too far outside of my natural crease. Taking a little bit of that shade we used before and just blending that out. Going back in, adding a little more. Just tweaking little by little. If you can, give yourself a lot of time to do your makeup. I thankfully got married the ceremony was at 5 p.m. So in theory, I had all day. Of course, I was running around and doing other things, but I definitely did not feel super crazy rushed when doing my makeup, which was the right move because I can see myself getting very frustrated if I felt like I was in a time crunch. And I also did my makeup by myself. I know that might sound antisocial, especially if you have like a huge bridal party, but for me, I just needed that time alone to meditate on the day and kind of prepare myself. And I was really glad that I gave myself that time because it was a super busy, hectic, fun, but definitely kind of overwhelming day. At least for me, it felt really nice and meditative. It's one of my really nice memories from the day. All right, eyeliner was something that I was a little bit nervous about. I wanted to keep the liner really, really tight to my lash line and just really follow the natural line of my eyes. So I actually did a little bit of a sandwich technique. I lined with eyeshadow first and then like laid down a little bit of a bed for my pencil eyeliner to go on, and then I went over top of the pencil eyeliner again with eyeshadow to just really get a subtle, soft, blended effect. To give myself a little guideline to work with, I first went in with a brown shadow shade. I believe this one is from the Natasha Denona I Need a Nude, and I just kept that really close to my lash line, and especially on the outer corner, I just kind of tried to follow my natural lash line as much as I could. And I also didn't go all the way in towards my tear duct just because I wanted to make sure my eyes looked really nice and open. Because I have hooded eyes, they can tend to look kind of heavy in photos, so I wanted to make sure that the eyeliner was primarily on the outer half of my eye. Again, all of this is up to your personal preference and people's eye shapes are so different, but this is just what I decided on for me. Okay, so once I had my little practice pad down for my pencil eyeliner, I went in with the pencil. This is the Persona 24-hour waterproof eye pencil in brown. This is a really, really long wear pencil if you're looking for a really good one that's not going to smudge or move anywhere on your eyes. And for this, I actually lifted my brow bone to get as close as possible to my lash line and applied less than I thought I needed, knowing that I was going to go back in and smudge it out. So I'll try and show you what I mean. So lifting my brow bone, closing my eye, and getting that pencil as close as possible to my lash line, but just a really minimal amount of pencil. And then going back in with my brush to blend that out. Working little bits at a time, so I feel like I need a little bit more. Gonna do the same thing. Really, really small amount. Back in with my brush. Just really staying pretty tight to my natural eye shape, but then lifting at the end. And then I took that same brush into my black shadow, which I believe is from the Natasha Denona My Dream palette, and went over that pencil again to really smudge and soften things out, but also set the pencil so that it was going to last all night. And then I just did the exact same process on the other eye, so pulling my lid to get close to the lashes, smudging out, and then setting with black shadow. Now, I went back and forth so many times on whether or not I wanted to leave things matte or add a shimmer, and I ended up going with a kind of in-between combo. So I took this bronzy shimmery shade from the Tartelette in Bloom palette, a little bit on my finger, and I actually wiped a little bit of it off onto the back of my hand and just ever so gently applied a tiny bit of that over the center of my lid. Just a really, really small amount, not like my usual shimmer application. I just wanted something that glimmered. I didn't want a bam in your face shimmer. I just wanted a slight glimmer in the light. So then I went in with Sydney Grace Turtle Doves, and same thing, just wiped a little bit of this on the back of my hand and through the front half of my lid, just kind of sparsely distributing a little bit of that to catch the light without being wildly shimmery. I think the shimmer looks really, really pretty. Like a full-on shimmer looks so pretty on brides. But I also love a matte look on brides. I think it's super timeless. So I kind of wanted to go for a bridge between the two. And then one last touch up with that really bright shade that we started with on the inner corner, just to keep that really, really bright. That was the eyeshadow done. Now another trick that I used was to take a tiny bit of moisturizer and put that kind of up under the eye area. And then you can grab a cotton round, works really well for this, or even just like a folded up tissue or a piece of toilet paper, just anything with a straight edge. And use the slip of the moisturizer to clean up and sharpen up the outer corner of the eye. I don't typically love dragging my eyes like that, but I think for the sake of your wedding makeup, I think it's okay on this particular day to pull your eyes and drag your eyes a little bit, but it just helps to really clean up that outer angle there. So now it's time to move on to the complexion. So I actually used an all over the face primer, which I will probably link. I'll probably link all of these products in the description box, but it's by a brand called Tease, and it's called Suit of Armor. I got it in an Ipsy, and to be honest, I wasn't really expecting much out of it, but it's actually an amazing primer. It does everything. It hydrates. I'm gonna put some down my neck as well. It hydrates and kind of evens out texture, but I also think it helps to keep my makeup on longer. If you're really oily, I think it could double as a moisturizer as well for you. I decanted mine into a tiny little travel size thing just because I was traveling with limited space, and I did that with my foundation as well, which I'll show you in a minute. But through the center of my face, I used the Cali Ray So Blown Clean Blurring Primer with collagen peptides. This is a very nice special occasion primer for when you really do just want your pores to disappear. It's very blurring. It definitely is silicone-y, but it doesn't feel as bad as some other primers like this that are really, really silicone-y. So I mainly just put that through my T-zone and then really pushed it into my pores to fill them in. For foundation, I needed something for a hot climate and that was going to last all day and look great in photos, so I went for the Estee Lauder Double Wear. I actually mixed a couple of shades because my chest and shoulders are a little bit more tan than my face and neck. I was even more tan for my wedding day. I've lost a lot of that tan now, but I will show you. For travel purposes, I ended up getting these little travel bottles off of Amazon. I can link them, and I was able to fit 2 shades of foundation into my carry-on bag rather than taking these huge bottles, which was a really great hack. So again, if you're traveling in just a carry-on, those little bottles might be helpful for you. I'm gonna try to match my face to my chest. Not that you can really see my chest right now, but for the purposes of wearing a wedding dress, where most of the time your décolleté is showing, you want all of your skin tones to match. So I'm mixing 1C1 Cool Bone, which is like my winter shade, with 3N1 Ivory Beige, which is definitely more of a summer shade for me. I think that shade is going to be pretty good for me today. I obviously on my wedding day took a lot more time shade matching, and I was also working with better lighting. I'm filming this kind of late in the afternoon, so my lighting is not amazing. But make sure that you have your shade match pretty spot on, because that will show up in photos. And I also took foundation down my neck because, again, my chest and my neck were different colors. So you just kind of want to even everything out as best as you can. Don't forget your ears as well, because they can turn red, especially if your hair is up. You want to get your ears, behind your ears, sides of your neck, everywhere that could potentially be showing in photos and in real life, honestly. And then the hairline is another big one. So everything that I did with my makeup, foundation, bronzer, contour, I took back into the hairline just so that there was no huge gap between skin tones. Like I said, I took a ton of time blending my eyeshadow, but I probably took more time blending my foundation. Another little trick you can do if you are tanning leading up to your wedding, or if you get like a spray tan or something, is if you got those 2 shades of foundation, take a tiny amount of the darker one and just use it in a really small amount around the perimeter of your face to give you a really natural looking tan, and down the sides of the neck as well. I also added a little bit more color to my face with contour and bronzer, and I actually did contour, bronzer, and blush before concealer. I know you're all probably dying for me to put concealer on at this point, but I did concealer last so that it could soften the lines of the bronzer, the contour, and the blush. For contour, I used the e.l.f. Halo Glow Beauty Wand Contour in the shade Light Medium, which unfortunately does not travel well. FYI, it is a huge mess. Just because of the packaging, it kind of sucks. So be aware of that. Make sure you are careful with it because it will get all over your makeup bag. And I just put a little bit of that on the back of my hand to start, and used this very kind of strategically to sculpt my face. Again, kind of blending everything back into the ears and then down the sides of the neck, just for a nice way to tan up the neck without looking super obvious. Hopefully you can see from one side of my face to the other. It's a subtle difference, but I do think it makes a difference. And then grabbing my foundation brush to just blend around the edges of that. Just working it into the brush on the back of my hand, and same thing on the other side. And then again with my foundation brush just around the edges. We're just leaving no stone unblended for our wedding makeup. Then just for a little bit more sculpting, I do like to put some of this on my nose. Again, nose contour is very personal, so if you don't normally do nose contour, I don't recommend trying it the day of your wedding. But if you do like a little bit of a nose contour in your day-to-day makeup, why not add it? And then, you guessed it, going over again with the foundation brush just to make absolutely sure that that's blended in nicely. I do also like this e.l.f. product for a little collarbone contour. I think that bridal makeup is kind of body makeup too, so I'm just going to take a smaller brush. Again, a tiny bit of that product, and if you kind of shrug up your collarbones, I know it looks kind of weird, you can see where the natural shadow should be and follow that along. I know this is a very flattering angle in the camera, but this is literally what I did on my wedding day. Again, if you have a wedding dress that has like straps here, you don't want to get makeup on those, so just be careful, pay attention to the neckline of your dress. But a little bit of body makeup can look really nice. And guess what I'm gonna do? You guessed it, I'm gonna take my foundation brush and blend those edges. Then for a little bit of warmth, I took my Catrice Melted Sun Cream Bronzer, and again, I kind of put some on the brush and tapped it off in the back of my hand, and then tapped it over the cheeks, the forehead, a little bit on the nose, just to warm things up. For bridal makeup, I feel like, especially in a hot climate, it's all about layers, like really light layers. So I did cream bronzer, liquid contour, and then I set that with powder. Again, taking that down sides of the neck here and onto the ears. Can kind of blend that bronzer into the contour that we put on the collarbones, just to kind of make everything cohesive. For highlighter, I used a tiny bit of the e.l.f. Halo Glow liquid filter in the shade 0.5 Fair. I just grabbed such a small amount of this on my finger for the tops of my cheekbones, and I like to work that in with my finger because I think, I don't know, it just blends into the skin a little bit easier. And I do this before blush because I don't want my highlight to be, for me, I didn't want my highlight to be sticking out and super obvious. I just wanted it to be like a lit from within kind of a glow. I don't really know how to show you this without it being awkward, but if you just put a little bit kind of at the base of your neck and across the chest, it can look really, really pretty and give you that nice radiant glow, while also kind of evening out that skin without having to use foundation, because there's like that tiny bit of coverage in this product. For liquid blush, I used the Rare Beauty Happy, and I tried to just be super gentle with this. So I put a dot on the back of my hand, grabbed my blush brush and kind of pressed down into the product so that only one side of my brush had product on it. And then starting from the backs of my cheeks, just pressing the blush in so I'm not disturbing everything underneath. And I will say, even at the end of the night, when I had pretty much sweat off most of my makeup, I do feel like this blush was still there. So this is a true long wear product, but I don't love the way that this blush looks on its own. I definitely like it. Honestly, just kind of a light layer of that because we are going to go back over with powder and I don't want to be too blushy. Now it's finally time for concealer. Yay! I'm going back in with my Pat McGrath, and honestly a pretty small amount of this just under the eyes. And anywhere else I felt I needed extra coverage. This is a pretty high coverage concealer, so a small amount really does go a long way. And for this particular concealer, I like to blend it with my finger because it is a little bit thicker and just more dry. So I think the warmth from my finger really helps. But the nice thing about a thicker, drier, high coverage formula is that it really sinks into the skin and doesn't sit on top of the skin, so it's not going to slide around. And you don't have to put as much product on. So the longevity is really, really good. So this is all of my creams done. So this is the first moment when I would spray my face. I used the Charlotte Tilbury setting spray on my wedding day, and I do think it did a really good job at keeping my makeup on my face. Unfortunately, I did run out of it because I had a very tiny amount left and I was not skimping on my wedding day. So I do not have that product to show you, but this would be the first time that you would spray your face to lock in all of those creams. So yes, just pretend like I have my Charlotte Tilbury setting spray and I am liberally spraying my face right now and letting it set down before powders. And while that setting spray was setting down is when I would do my brows. So taking a tiny bit of my Laura Mercier translucent setting powder, I just kind of pat this through my brows. This is a Makeup by Nikki LaRose trick. Your brow products on your brows longer, absorbing any oils from your skin or from any foundation or concealer that's made its way into there. For brows, I did a little bit more than I would typically do. I went a little bit extra, so I started with this, which is the e.l.f. Instant Lift Waterproof Brow Pencil, just to fill in mainly through the center of my brow, like the arch. And I have a tendency to go a little bit overboard on my brows, and it comes back to haunt me in photos. So I really tried not to do too much with my brows for my wedding day, but I did just want to fill in a few of these sparse areas. So I used the Milani Weekend Brow Eye Tint in 130 Medium Brown to just give myself a few extra brow hairs. Okay, I realized I forgot to put lip balm on my lips to start to have my lips hydrated for lipstick, so I went ahead and put some on. This is just the Kosas Plump and Juicy Lip Booster. But yeah, ideally you would try and remember to do that before you start your makeup. Now it is time for powder before I set my brows down. So I told you I had to treat my skin like it was combination oily. So you're about to see me do something that you have never seen me do on my channel before, which is use multiple powders. We really want to lock this situation in. So first, a loose setting powder to set my entire face. So I'm going back in with my Laura Mercier translucent setting powder. Just dump some in the cap and then get it all over my brush, and then pat over top of everything, even the blush and the bronzer. This is just going to help to lock all of that makeup in. And I'm also going down my neck because we put makeup on the neck, and I'm about to put more makeup on the neck with my powder bronzer, so I want to make sure all of that is really well set again. And then I'm even going to put a tiny amount over my chest because we put some makeup on my chest as well, and I don't want that slipping and sliding anywhere. For underneath my eyes, I'm going to take that same loose powder on a powder puff. I'm just going to lightly set my under eyes, and then we will come back in with the powder puff and a pressed powder in a bit, but I'm going to let this settle in first. So I'm going to take my powder bronzer. I used the Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Bronzer in 2 medium. Just go in with the same brush that I used for the loose powder. Tap off to make sure I'm not depositing too much at any one time. And go around the perimeter of my face. And I don't set my brows until after this step because I might mess them up in bronzing my forehead. I'm also going to take this down the sides of the neck because remember, that was our little trick from earlier to help our neck match our shoulders and chest. And then I'm also going to take a little bit over the bridge of my nose just so it doesn't stick out and not match the rest of my face. Don't forget your ears, and don't forget to blend back into the hairline as well. For blush, I took a combination of shades from my Pat McGrath Divine Blush and Glow Cheek Palette. So I dipped into this lighter, more neutral pink for kind of the back of my cheeks. And then I took a little bit of this brighter, more bubblegummy pink for the apples of my cheeks. And then whatever's left across my nose, just because I like that look. Let's set the face one more time, and then we can finally set the brows and finish the eyes. So just taking my powder puff into my Charlotte Tilbury Airbrush Flawless Finish again. That is so hard to say. Airbrush Flawless Finish. And I'm just going to powder right through the T-zone and anywhere I feel like my makeup is prone to wear off. So around my nose as well. To set my brows, I used the Rare Beauty Flexible Lifting Gel. I do like this and I think it's good, but you have to kind of apply a lot of it. So I actually backcomb my brows so that they are getting fully coated. But I do find that if you apply enough, this is a really strong hold brow gel without getting those weird white flakes coming off. And I like my brows to be lifted and to stay in place. All right, to finish the eyes, I'm going in with my eyeliner again, and I'm just kind of dotting this along the roots of my lower lashes. I don't want to draw a super harsh line, but I do just want a little bit of a base there for shadow to cling to. And then on a little brush, I'm going to go into my brown, matte brown shade from the Natasha Denona I Need a Nude palette. And I'm just going to both connect the lower lash line to the upper lash line and also just smudge out that brown liner a bit. And then just to soften and blend that out a little bit further, I'm going to go in with this warmer, kind of more chestnut brown that we used, and a slightly fluffier brush, and just make sure that edge is really soft. I ultimately decided against doing false lashes. I had them ready to go. I practiced with them and I thought about it, and it was ultimately like a game time decision. I just decided not to worry about it, and I just decided to roll with my natural lashes. Instead, I did figure out a little hack. So if you have a mascara that you really like what it does for your lashes, but it's not waterproof or a tubing formula where you're afraid it might smudge or run, I kind of topped my regular mascara with a tubing mascara. So a few coats of a regular mascara and then a few coats of the tubing mascara, and my lashes stayed perfect through sweat, through a little bit of tearing up, through all of that. So if you aren't a huge fan of waterproof mascara or you don't have one that you love, this might be a really nice alternative. This one is from Wet n Wild. It's called the So Defined Volumizing and Defining Mascara. And I really, really like what it does for my lashes. It lifts them beautifully and gives lots of volume and separation. But unfortunately, it is not waterproof or a tubing formula. So I didn't want to wear it just on its own, just in case of any smudging. Okay, so that is 2 coats of the Wet n Wild mascara, and now I'm going to go over it with a couple of coats of the Cali Ray Come Hell or High Water, mainly on the ends of my lashes, just where they have the most potential to transfer, but kind of all over, just to really lock in that mascara. And I'm also going to use this tubing formula on my lower lashes a little bit as well. If you wanted to just go with a tubing mascara, I do really like the Cali Ray one on its own for volume, but having the Wet n Wild underneath just gives it that little bit of extra drama since I ended up not wearing the falsies. Okay, that's mascara done. If you get any little bits up here during application, don't panic. Just let it dry and it will flake right off. So I'm just gonna let that dry while I talk to you about lips. So I did for lips the tiniest, babiest little bit of lip liner. I used Charlotte Tilbury Iconic Nude. I know a lot of people say do lip liner and fill in your entire lips for longevity. For me, I felt like it was going to be fighting a losing battle because I knew my lips were going to dry out and I wasn't going to have a ton of time to reapply during the day. So for me, it was more important that my lips didn't look dry and cracked. So I just did a very minimal amount of lip liner, not for longevity, but more so to just define my lips. So a really small amount underneath my bottom lip, and then to shape out and exaggerate my Cupid's bow, I just accepted the fact that my lipstick probably wasn't gonna last the entire day, which it didn't, which ended up being fine. I had my husband carry a lip gloss in the pocket of his coat in case I wanted to touch up at the reception, but I ended up not even using it. So I just had my lipstick on for basically the ceremony and the pictures, and then it wore off over the course of the reception, and I was absolutely fine with that. But for lipstick, I did find a really nice combo that I loved. Both are Charlotte Tilbury. So Candy Chic is a little bit more of a pinky nude, and then Pillow Talk Fair is a little bit more of like a lighter beige nude. I ended up doing a little bit of Candy Chic around the perimeter of my lips. Really nice kind of mauvey pink, perfect for bridal. And then for a little bit of dimension, I did a bit of Pillow Talk Fair in the center. Two last minute things before we are finally finished with this video are two little eye tricks that I did. So I took my Tarte Double Take Awake liner, the nude side, and I just did a tiny, and I mean teeny tiny amount of this in the center of my waterline. Just takes out any of the pinkness in your waterline and makes your eyes look really, really bright. I need to buff away those little mascara marks before I forget. See, they just flake right off. And then the other eyeliner trick was I took the Catrice 20-Hour Ultra Precision Waterproof Gel Eye Pencil in the shade Light Up, which is like a light shimmery champagne color. And I just put that right in this inner corner area and kind of pushed it into my skin for a very subtle inner corner highlight to catch the light. And it's a very subtle difference, but I think it really does look beautiful, especially as the night goes on. You know, you get golden hour, and then we had lots of candles at our reception, and that candlelight kind of catching a little bit of glimmer in the inner corner and on the eyes as well. So this would be the moment to do that last final dousing of setting spray from Charlotte Tilbury. If I had it with me, I definitely would. This is the makeup that I did for my wedding day. I hope that this was helpful if you are looking for makeup tips for your own wedding, or just for long wearing makeup for events or long days in your life, or at the very least entertaining to see what kind of makeup I did for my wedding day. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to be back with more regular uploads very soon, and until then, I will see you in the next one. Bye-bye.